We are live. Welcome, everyone, to the JL's Success Mastermind book study group for Monday, the 1st of November, 2021. Some of you I've met with already a couple of times today. It's been an insanely busy day, and I'm glad that we get to just hang out here and talk a little bit about, some ideas from Mr. Clean. Not clean, clear, Mr. Clear, not Mr. Clean, about how to create some habits. And of course, this week we're covering the is it the third or fourth law? Hold on, where is it? Where's my book? Third. Yes, make it easy. Make it easy. So I really like it. I see myself doing some of this stuff, especially when it comes to the environment, right, where we could set ourselves up for success. He alluded to this in previous chapters. But the idea that we don't have to force our way to do the right thing is, I think, obvious and yet profound for a lot of people. So he covered, he covered a few of these. By the way, I love the chapters summaries, right, where you can just kind of like have nice reminders there. Yeah, thank you, Stuart, for delivering that. So Stuart has a little handout for everybody here. I guess I could just post that right here, Stuart. Should I do that? So Stuart enumerated the summaries of each chapter. So I'll go ahead and get that posted. Make it easy. And of course, the inverse of that is make it difficult, right? So if we're looking to break a habit that we've determined is not as resourceful as we'd like it to be, then we could just put a bunch of stops in the way of doing that. So who's got some ideas on what we just read here over these last 4 chapters? Come on out. Missy and Bob, you've got the floor.
Speaking about no particular chapter, I hope you will indulge me in one of my favorite topics, and that is the grand sport of golf. Because 2 things jumped out at me. One is repetition of a habit is imperative for making that habit stick, and having the habit stick is imperative for success. And that reminded me of a golfer from my youth. He's a contemporary of Arnold Palmer. Everyone's heard of Arnold Palmer. But this was a golfer named Bill Casper. And Casper was the equivalent or better than Palmer in many ways. Casper had an interesting habit. And this is the point. If he was distracted in his swing thought, I mean, he would have gone through the entire selection of the club, addressing the ball, everything. But if he was distracted, he would break off where he was. He would put the club back in the bag, and he would go all the way through his pre-shot routine.
Oh,
okay. That way, he was attempting the shot the way he wanted to attempt the shot and make it successful, rather than sort of compromise, you might say, with the environment around him and have a less successful shot. The other thing, and this is towards the very end of the assigned reading, was when they were talking about journalism, and Hemingway's comment that you stop when you are going good. And that reinforced another lesson from golf. And that is, you see golfers, professional golfers and better amateur golfers are practicing all the time. They're practicing. But they stop practicing when things are going well. They know that if they practice when they have developed bad swing habits, they are going to solidify those bad swing habits. So that struck me. Both the whole lesson about doing small things, repeating them, amplifying on them, but you can only amplify so far. Otherwise, as I said in the last chapter, the habit itself becomes the goal rather than the means to the goal.
Right.
Tremendous takeaway.
Huge. He also mentioned how it's not the duration, but the frequency.
Yes.
Right. So I'm thinking of the golfer thing. right? So they practice a little bit and they do that often, and they end on a high note and solidify that. I've done
Yeah.
exactly the same thing, Bob, with weapons training, right? So I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but I've got laser targets, and I'll set this up, and I'll do my presentation from the holster, take the shot, and then I'll decide, after having done 10 minutes or so duration of that practice, which is typically enough, 10 to 15 minutes, but I'll decide that I will, when I get 3 perfect presentations, hits, everything done, I will end off on that 3 hits in a row, right? And I'm talking about a tiny target at 10 yards away, right? And it's just shooting lasers, but still that is ingrained in. It's like I just succeeded. It doesn't get any better than that, right? I guess I can get my time down by some tenths of a second, but the speed and accuracy is there, and I end off on that. And now I'm excited to do it again on the next day.
Mhm.
So that's beautiful.
Sometimes success is knowing when to stop.
Mm-hmm. Right. And there's diminishing returns, right? Haven't we all experienced this, everybody? Where now we're trying to force solutions, right? And I'm going to force my way in. How many times have we just stepped away? And this isn't necessarily about habits, okay? But it's part of our own makeup, where we've been frustrated, we step away, we get in present time, we get objective, we come back, and now we see, or we do in a way that somehow we couldn't force ourselves to do before. Okay, so force doesn't work, right? And I think the whole idea here with making it easy, which is the law, the so-called law that we're reading about this week, that sounds more pleasing than force, right? I'd much rather have 10 or 15 minutes of practice, end on a high note, and then that seems easier to me than forcing my way through. And are we going to hit it every time? Now, the other thing that came up for me, Bob, is this guy with his ritual with getting the club out of the bag, or whatever the ritual was.
Mhm.
I could see where that is, representative of, now I am ready, I am in the zone, or whatever.
Yes.
On the other hand,
Exactly.
and you brought this up a week or two ago, where's the line? Where's the threshold we cross into obsessiveness? Like, I have to wash my hands 15 times before I touch the broccoli or something. I mean, that's insane. So, because you mentioned you had an insane friend who was pretty far gone.
Yeah.
So I guess there's a threshold there. But if we're just talking about how the habit starts when the guy calls the cab, so the habit of going to the gym,
Mhm.
right? That's the product, but calling the cab is the initiation of that, which is that fast. So I guess that has something to do with it too. You called the cab, you got the club out of the bag, right? So maybe that's as far as we need to go with it. So anyway, interesting. Who else has some ideas about that?
I don't want to hog, but I really loved
You haven't
the
said a word
first
yet.
part with
Are you
the
hogging?
the photography class,
Mhm.
where one half of the class, all they had to do the whole semester, like one picture. And the other half was assigned to do as many as you can.
Mm.
And the ones that had to do as many as they can, you could call it throw spaghetti against the wall. They had the better, they succeeded. Whereas the people trying to perfect it, I guess in the later chapter, they were in constant motion, but they never achieved their goal. And the other people were in constant activity, not just motion. And they succeeded. And that was a big lesson for me with the e-commerce and the stores and
Mhm.
other things. And just, even if you don't know, just go, just do, and I thought that was a very interesting lesson. I felt bad for the people with the perfect picture, but I loved that as an example.
Right. So what did it say in the book? Confusing activity with
Motion with
motion.
activity,
Okay.
Mhm.
Right.
something like that.
Motion and action.
Action, yeah, with action.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I was reminded of as I was going through this was something that Hal Elrod talked about in The Miracle Morning, where he talked about, because we're talking about gradients, so we're talking about doing a little bit and initiating the habit with this activity, right? That kind of triggers the rest of it. remember where Hal talked about, for those of you who read that book, just doing, if it's just 1 minute, right? So he's got like his savers thing, which could be made into habits, right? So we get quiet time, we do our, visualization, right? Our study and all this. So these are things which, if you haven't been doing habitually, then it's a conscious effort to do it. But it's not go to the gym for 2 hours, right? It's do 10 push-ups or something. So do 1 minute, right? Oh, you want to do more? Okay, that's fine. Not at the outset, maybe. Okay. And he mentioned this in the book where it's that frequency and it's that very easy to access on-ramp that allows us to overcome whatever mental barriers or resistance. Didn't Dorothea Brand talk about this? Resistance. I experience so much resistance. I need some phenobarbital to quell my own inner ramblings or something, right? All right, do 1 minute. That's it, right? And then you'll do more. So it's that gradient. And if we can make this easy, well, then I don't have to talk about it so much or think about it or be indecisive and all this constant, internal dialogue. Holy shit, let's just get it done. A little bit, just do a little bit. And then that's it. We did it. I like it. Who else? Thank you, Missy and Bob. Who else has some thoughts about these 4 chapters that we just went through? Gateway habits, says Stuart. That's great. That's great. Yeah, the 2-minute rule is what he talked about. Stuart, small crowd here. No need to raise hands.
I know, but I do it anyway. Lower my hand. Maybe I raise it just so I can lower it.
I can't hear you, brother. You there?
A habit.
So,
Thank you for keeping order, my friend. That's very nice.
Yeah, to jump on what Missy was talking about with the photography and the quality versus quantity, and the best photos were from the people that were just submitting lots and lots. And of course, it reminds me of my friend and mentor, John Lavenia. What is it? Not perfect and done beats perfect.
Imperfect and done.
Done.
That's
Right?
good.
Or
Yeah,
perfect
that's it.
and not
Perfect
done,
and done
right?
beats perfect and not done. Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, he says it's easy to get bogged down to try and find the optimal plan for change. He drops a Voltaire quote, "Best is the enemy of good." That sounds like something you might say too. And then, yeah, Bob, you were talking about, or both of you guys were talking about the difference between being in motion and taking action. And that to me just keeps playing on this theme of busy versus productive, right? That you can find all these things to do so that you convince yourself that you're making headway with whatever, but the reality is you're just spinning your wheels just to sort of appease yourself or convince yourself that you're getting things done. I even think about that, whether it's in terms of like working on my business or working on my mindset or whatever it is, that, you can spend 80% of your time reading and studying and planning, right? And 20% of your time actually getting things done. But the reality is the way to do it is the other way, right? You want to spend maybe 20% of your time, reading, studying, planning. I think he talks about planning and strategizing kind of thing, and spend, at least this is my take on it. And you spend, the bulk of your time, 80% or whatever, actually doing those high integrity actions, doing those things that are going to move you towards achieving your goal. What do you say? Action delivers outcome.
Yes.
Whereas, the other is different. It's easy to be in motion, right? What do you say? To master a habit, the key is repetition, not perfection. I like that. Get your reps in. He talks about, I like all these scientific terms, long-term potentiation strengthens the connections between your neurons and brains. He drops Hebb's law, neurons that, right, the family that whatever together, whatever,
Wires together, wires together.
neurons that fire together, wire together. He talks about the taxi driver. John, do you remember in the early days of the first iteration of the Success Mastermind, and we had a couple from London. It was a husband and wife couple. The guy's name was Pete, and he was a taxi driver from London.
Mhm.
And I had just watched this documentary or television show, and it talked exactly about that, about how the hippocampus is enlarged and spatial memory, because to be a taxi driver in London, you have to literally study the whole map of the city of London, and you have to know it all by heart. And it's just one of the hardest things to do. And then I thought the opposite was cool too, where once they retire, they lose that ability and it atrophies and the hippocampus shrinks. I just thought that was pretty cool.
Wow.
And then, he talks about automaticity. Thank you, Bob. And what that reminds me of is, this concept, it's almost like a self-hypnosis to me. Like when you think about driving, and driving is one of those interesting things, because when you drive, your brain through your optic nerve is taking in billions of bytes of information, more information than you can actually process, right? To the point where you're driving down the road and the ball bounces in front of your car and you immediately know what to do, right? This concept of the more you do something through practice and repetition, that it creates this automation where you don't have to think about things. I spent 6 winters as the daytime chef at one of the resort hotels at the local ski valley here. And what that meant, and I live 50 some odd miles from the ski valley, and the last 10 miles was in this mountain canyon that we would get, feet of snow on a regular basis. And the plows didn't start until 6 or 5:30 or 6 in the morning. I had to be at work at 5 a.m. So I was literally propped up in the shower, at 3:30 in the morning in my 1987 4Runner with the roll bar, old school 2-door, driving to work at 4 a.m. every day. And I would get to work some days, and I'm sure that many of you have experienced this, if not everybody on this call, where you're driving and all of a sudden you're somewhere and you're like, holy cow, how did I get here? Right? You have no clue how you even got there, and let alone that you're alive or anything like that, right? So that's just amazing to me. But that sort of ability that we have to self-automate, self-hypnosis may not be the right word, but fascinating stuff to me. And then this is the chapter 12 is where he gets me. And I, as much respect as I have for Mr. Clear, once he starts dropping references to one of my favorite books on the planet, Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared. I did a John Lavenia right there. I was like, I got that book. And he talks about how the domestic food package that the Romans brought from east to west has more to do with the east-west axis and the geographic or continental layout, that they could take the same grains, the same animals, and move them across Eurasia with relative ease, whereas here in the Americas, moving north to south with animals and food crops was a near impossibility. And in the book, he talks about how it takes like 10,000 years to actually domesticate corn. And that's like the one food product that the Americas produced, as a part of our major food package. The reason why I like this book and why I use it all the time, I quote it all the time on the trail with people, is because he says that the South American camelid, meaning the llama, the alpaca, the guanaco, and the vicuña, is the only large domesticated mammal native to the Americas. Interesting.
I did not know that.
There you go. Yeah, if you were to think about any of the farm animals, livestock animals, cattle, sheep, pigs, goats, whatever, they all come from Fertile Crescent 8 to 10,000 years ago. The only large domestic, and to the Andean cultures, the llama was the horse and the alpaca was the sheep. But just interesting.
So we're just talking about domesticated animals, not like bears. Yes. And
right.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Right. Domesticated animal. Because again, we didn't, horses, the Spanish brought here. I mean, really any animal that you think of that we would consider domesticated or livestock, came from somewhere else, or large domesticated mammal. Maybe, you got, the canines, right? I mean, that's an interesting thing that people all around the world had this connection with dogs. They don't even know how far back the connection with canines and humans go. They say that we used to think that humans or that canines learned or were domesticated by watching the humans, but a lot of people are now saying that humans learned husbandry, clan behavior, and things like that from hanging out with wolf packs. Pretty interesting. Cool stuff.
So Stuart, have we gone to the dogs? Is that what you're telling us?
Right. Yeah.
What's the other cool thing? If you die in your house, your cat will start eating you within a day, but your dog will hang out with you until somebody shows up to collect your body. Right? That's the difference between dogs and cats. I like he talks about energy is precious and that our brain is wired to conserve energy. And as a wilderness guide and as an outdoors person, I think a lot about when I'm, blazing trails in the backcountry, and maybe some of you have experienced the same thing. I know, Lindsay, I see you spending a lot of time outside as well, and whether it's wilderness or in your park or whatever. But animals, even though you'd think like wild animals, elk and deer and moose and all these animals would prefer to stick to the least traveled routes. The reality is that once a path has been forged through a wild area, all the animals want to use it because it's the easiest way to go. And maybe they'll make decisions based on whether it smells like a human's been there or whether there's been recent traffic or things like that. But absent of human activity, animals will absolutely choose the easiest route up a mountain, for example. I just thought that was pretty cool.
Well, don't we all do that? Doesn't
Yeah.
all life forms choose the path of least effort?
Yeah.
Right. Because energy is costly, right? I mean, it's going to cost you energy to like cut that path. Well, there's already a path there. Well, let's just use
the
that.
law. It's another
Right.
law.
There you go.
The law of least effort or whatever you call it, right? And just like you're saying, right, we gravitate towards the option that takes the least amount of effort. If it takes more energy, you're less likely to do it, right? So the inverse is right. That's about making it easy, making it whatever, putting the thing right. The guy that will go to the gym because it's easier on the way to work, but if you pick the fitness center that's a few blocks out of the way, that's a pain in the butt or whatever. You're less likely to do that. I'm sure we all do things exactly like that. I like what he says about you don't actually want the habit or the behavior, you want the results of the behavior, and that the habit is the obstacle to getting the thing that you want. What do you think about that, John?
Well, it was an interesting perspective, right? So between me and this product that I'm here to create, this result, this experience, lies this habit. So there's the bridge. Do I look at it as an obstacle? And so that one piece, it's interesting you bring that up. That one piece I thought was an interesting perspective. I don't 100% agree with it. I think of it more as a bridge than an obstacle.
Convenience, right? I agree, right? I don't like to think of, and even, and I would almost say that there are plenty of people who really enjoy the activity, right? Who really enjoy working out. I mean, I thought of you immediately. I was like, I bet John likes working out, not just because it keeps him in shape and makes him feel healthy and good, but because he actually likes doing the thing.
There are times when I have to, just stop thinking, go to the gym and not because I don't want to, right? There are times I don't want to, but habitually I keep showing up, and therefore before I can talk myself out of it, I'm already doing it. And once I'm in the gym, well, now I'm in present time in the gym, right? But up until that point, I may have had resistance. But the idea of, you mentioned environment, you're in chapter 12 is what you're talking about here. So I do enjoy, let's say, for example, having an orderly environment, a path of least effort for me to accomplish those things which I'm here to accomplish. All right. I also like living in a clean environment. So I do enjoy that, but I've set it up to predispose myself to not have a lot of time between the impulse of thought and the execution of the act. Right. So I win on both fronts. Yes, I'm winning in the gym on both fronts as well. So, but yeah, as far as putting our bodies into a state of discomfort and, lifting weights until you can't lift them anymore, That's not least effort, that's not path of least resistance. But I'll tell you what, here's what I do know intellectually is that it's way easier to stay in shape than it is to get in shape. So choose which price you're going to pay. Choose. Right?
So in wilderness medicine, we say it's easier to stay hydrated than to get hydrated, right? It's easier to stay warm than to get warm, all these things, right? And even when you're talking about maybe your car, right? It may take more gas to start your car up than to have it idle, right? All those kinds of things, I think is an interesting concept, right? And you were saying, I think you were alluding to like the level of friction, right? And that's kind of what he's saying is that the goal is to like reduce your level of friction. The Japanese companies that do the thing, the lean production, remove the wasted energy or the inefficiency. You were talking about like priming your environment, right? The guy that cleans the toilet before taking a shower or whatever. I thought that was pretty interesting. I'm like, I don't know if I'm that guy, but I thought that was pretty hilarious. But when I worked in the restaurant, one of the Jedi restaurant tricks that I learned was the kitchen triangle, right? And so you've got your the fridge, the stove, and the counter or whatever it is, right? And it's always one step away. And so people that design even houses, but in terms of like restaurant consultants and things like that, it's all about designing the space for the least amount of effort. You want to be able to go one step from prepping your veggies or whatever it is on your counter to be able to turn around and put it on the saute pan or whatever it is. You don't want to have to move too much. And you heard me say I had to be at work at 5 a.m. every day. And so when I would go into the walk-in in the kitchen in the back, I wouldn't just go back there for one thing, right? I would go back there and I'd come back with everything I needed for the next couple hours, so I didn't have to make 10 trips back there or whatever. So I appreciated the addition by subtraction, lighting the cognitive load. And then he gets into this thing about choices and asking our customers to make fewer choices. Did you catch on that? Did you like that concept? For me, as an outfitter that is a permitted recreation outfitter with the Forest Service that has access to 1.5 million acres of public lands in my backyard. If I were to ask my guests, where do you want to go? Right? It turns into a nightmare, right? And I might have 20 or 30 different trails that I utilize. But for the most part, I've found that, through the screenings that we do, and so this may translate to some of what you guys do. But based on the screening, I'll look at like age, fitness, experience, and things like that. And then I'll choose trails that I think are appropriate to the level of what the client is. If I were to ask the client, most of the time, if I were to say, where do you want to go? They're like, I don't know, you pick, And so I think, depending, and maybe that's, when you ever watch The Prophet with, what's his name, Marcus Lemonis, and he goes in and like takes restaurants or any business and, he invests and he kind of helps them get their systems and their processes in place and things like that for a percentage of the business, of course. But one of the things that he does in particular with restaurants is like a lot of restaurants and oh my God, you guys, Missy and Bob will understand, and so will you, John. The Greek diners that have the menu that's like this freaking thick, right? And you can order everything you can imagine on the menu. But
24 hours a day. You want French toast at 3 a.m.? You want lobster? You want
lobster thermina? You want Slovakia? You can whatever it is. and
Pepsi.
The first thing that guy does is he's like, pare down your menu, pick a dozen things or whatever. And maybe that's not, the business model that those people want to do, but it often leads to their success and what they're doing, as opposed to, having the 20-page menu that, I appreciate it sometimes, but at the same time, you're also like, geez, how many things prep do they have in the back of that kitchen, and what kind of goop is growing on the on the eggplant parm or whatever,
Welcome to New Jersey. Yep.
And he says we're practically lazy or proactively lazy. I like that. and
Yeah.
that we should organize a space for its purpose, the priming our environment. He says he talks about the inverse and about how to make it difficult. And I liked his concept of hiding the TV or hiding the remote or whatever it is, right?
Taking the
To make it
batteries out. Yeah.
harder to watch TV. And he talks about he has his assistant delete his social media apps every weekend or something like that. I thought that was pretty hilarious. The sad and scary thing is, the average person spends hours a day on social media or whatever, right? I mean, hopefully not too many of us fall within that category in our mastermind, but what's the other horrifying statistic that the average person spends like 4 to 7 hours a day, in front of a screen, whether it's
7.
television.
Average American.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's, the average, right? But then he says something, and then what's the beginning each day with the ritual. I really appreciated that, right? And whether it's putting on your sweatpants or hailing the cab or whatever it is, for me, when I was full on, pre-surgery, running wilderness trips every morning, and I'd have to get up several hours, before I would even meet clients at the trailhead, and again, I imagine that many of you guys would relate to this, but, if I'm meeting a group of clients at 10:30 at the trailhead to go on a 6-hour, day hike or something like that, I work backwards. It takes me an hour and a half to brush and saddle the llamas and get everybody ready. So I got to show up at, plus I got to be there. I want to be shiny and ready 15 minutes before anybody shows up, right? So I give myself, and this goes into the, if you're not late, or if you're not early, you're late, or, those kinds of things. But, my day starts at 5:30 in the morning. I go out and my day starts in the kitchen. I'm prepping food for these trips. Then I got to go out and round up the llamas. Then I got to drive to a trailhead that could take me, a half hour to an hour and a half to get someplace. So I'm doing 4 to 5 hours work before the client even shows up, right? I mean, that's, an interesting thing. So for me, the ritual was making the cup of coffee or making the giant pot of coffee. I don't know if you guys, I had this like giant 32 ounce, Big Buddy, whatever the heck it was, mug of coffee. But often just making the pot of coffee was the ritual for me. Like sometimes I'll make the pot of coffee and then I forget about it, because that was the ritual for me, was just to like start the day. So I imagine that most of you guys have some kind of morning ritual. 40 to 50% of our daily actions are habituated. I thought that was an interesting statistic as well. He calls it the entrance ramp to the highway or whatever. That's what we were talking about, like gateway habits. And then he talks about these decisive moments. And of course, I think about you, John, as well, right? And he says, what is it? Every day we come to these landmark moments where you have to make a decision. And that decision can, what did he say? Delivers outsized or oversized results. And then from there, it sets the tone or sets the other decisions that you can make for the day. And I don't know, he used the example of like, okay, you go to the sushi restaurant, you can only order sushi or whatever it is, right? I thought that was pretty cool. But what do you say that those moments are the option, sets the options available for our future selves, right? And anytime somebody talks about future self, I know Missy, you get jazzed, right? Because that's like right out of Uncle Neville or whatever. I thought that was pretty cool. And then he talks about being shaped by the first choice, whatever that is. Like, you make that one decision that then all the other decisions can compound or be based off of. And then the 2-minute rule, start a new habit, do less than 2 minutes. I like the concept. Yeah, read one page, do one sit up. When I had just, when my back was trashed even before surgery, and I was really trying to work on my core before having all my abs and lats sliced into by the surgeon, and the better your core is when you go into a surgery like that, especially an abdominal surgery, the faster your recovery time is and things like that. And it, I could barely do a couple of crunches kind of thing. It was horrible. And I would just do this thing where I like, okay, I'll just do one sit up. I'll just do one crunch or whatever it is. And I kind of built up to the time that I had surgery, and hopefully it seems like it's paid off, because my recovery now at 4 months post-op is like, I'm feeling it. He says the point is to master the art of showing up. Who do you think of when you think of that? Our buddy here, right? Come on, the art of showing up. I love it, man. And then, yeah, who said the quote, Bob? That stay below the point where it feels like work,
Yes.
right? Because then you get to that point and you're like, you don't want to do it. Oh, and then you mentioned the Hemingway quote. I'm calling this, what is it? To stop when the going is good. My East Coast friends and the Seinfeld
Yeah,
fans.
George
George
Costanza.
The
Costanza.
Costanza method.
Right.
Thank you. Right? He does like the one thing. And whatever, it's the mic drop. Like you do the one
Leave
thing,
on a high note.
you leave it on a high note. I love it. That was immediately what I thought of. And then you want to become the type of person who doesn't miss a workout, or who doesn't do whatever, right? So it's about reinforcing that identity. He talks about habit shaping, and he says scaling down towards your ultimate goal, but I'm saying scaling up. I don't know, whatever, but it's the same thing. But this concept of you start with the 2-minute thing and then you increase until you get there. And then in chapter 4, make it impossible, right? The inverse, right? Victor Hugo puts all his clothes in a trunk so that all he has is like a towel or a shawl, so that he has to write The Hunchback of Notre Dame or whatever it is. I thought that was pretty cool. I like what he talks about commitment devices, right? And this concept of the choice we make in the present controls the actions that we make in the future. Again, I'm all about future self and setting the stage for the future self, right? You go to the restaurant, you ask the waiter to split the meal, put it in a box before it even comes, right? Or whatever it is, anything that you can do like that. And then the thing that hit me here is he talks about the entrepreneur. If you're excited about being in business, make an appointment with a mentor, or do something that helps you to, and I'll use Goddard speak here, to assume the state of, right? What would a successful Amazon seller do, or what would a successful drop shipper do, Missy? And making those choices, right? And so for me in my business, when I started my guide service, oh my God, 27 years ago, and I was literally a destitute single father with a little kid strapped to my back, and everybody I knew was like, how are you gonna get llamas? You can't even feed yourself, or whatever it was, right? And I remember I would do things like, I was like, this is my vision, this is my goal, this is the thing that I want to do, this is my desire, right? And I would do things like write the text and the copy to a brochure that I had no money to print, right? I would fill out all of the paperwork, 100 pages of permit paperwork for a Forest Service permit that I could not fathomly, be able to get, but I would do all that stuff, right? Because I could do what you can, or whatever. And so that really inspired me. I thought that was pretty interesting. And then I'm going to say a couple more things here. No, that's pretty much it. And then the other thing that I thought was cool was he talks about procrastination, right? And he didn't really talk about it, but he kind of puts it in the title. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's a fantastic TED Talk on the master procrastinator. I just put the link in the chat there by this guy named Tim Urban. And he creates these 3 characters in your brain. One is the rational thinker, the other is the instant gratification monkey, and then the third is the what does he call it? The deadline, whatever, the courage of desperation kind of thing. So you got these 3 characters in your brain that are all competing, right? And you have the rational person who's like, yeah, I need to do this thing. And then the instant gratification part is like, yeah, but if I watch this YouTube video on cats or kittens or whatever, then I'll, that'll be great and it'll be fun. And then you procrastinate as much as you want. And then you get into the panic mode of, oh my God, I got to do this thing. So anyway, I thought that was cool. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Janet, did you have some thoughts on this?
Well, I haven't read all of it, but there was a guy, so you guys know I teach calligraphy and do calligraphy. So there was a guy in the art store the other day and he says, oh, so how can there's always people like this. How can I learn it faster? Or how can I, not have to go through all the stuff, right? Just kind of get it. And I said, well, practice more and get a good teacher. You can't get it from a book. And if you just kind of like practice once in a while, it's not going to happen. Practice more. And he says that with the repetition and everything like that. I have a thought about the boredom thing because there's the whole thing of beginner's mind. I think it's a Buddhist thing, beginner's mind. And if you come to something saying, I know what this is about, da, 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 da. But if you come like a child saying, oh, look at, this is exciting. This is something, let me see what this is about. Really go into it, whether it's your golf swing or it's your, whatever it is that you're doing. Go back as though you don't know anything and go through it in a way that you are very mindful of it. You feel it, you do it. You can't be bored when you are in the doing part. I think the boredom comes with, I know what this is all about. I don't have to something or other. So I think that getting yourself in the right mindset to get excited and to feel it again and to know it is a thing that keeps you out of that boredom thing. And yeah, none of us want to be there. So these are just things that I was looking at that I thought, and I think I'm going to do some of this with my students on Friday. While you guys are all having a good time, I am teaching on Fridays. So yeah, the repetition, you don't worry about perfection, you worry about getting better, getting better from what you were. Because I don't know what perfection is, honestly, but I know that I say practice makes better. Mm-hmm. And that's what I believe. Okay. So, yeah, so all of this, but you can't okay, my repetition is I'm going to do it once a month.
No.
Because there is a backsliding thing. There is a forgetting thing, especially when it's something manual. If you haven't cleaned your llamas in a while, if you've been away from them for, a few months, it's like, oh, now what did I do? What brush did I use? What routine did I have? Whatever like that. And so you want to stay in the group, but you want to have it be so it's second nature. Not that you're not thinking about it. Second nature is different from just like a knee-jerk reaction thing. You're absolutely right, Stuart. When I was in junior high, and we learned about kitchens, there was like a 15 or 17 foot triangle so that you weren't doing a lot from here to there to here. You weren't taking a lot of effort and time. It was really how you design something. And I look at these, yes, we watch TV together, the Escape to the Country stuff, and people want these big kitchens. And I look at them and I think, yeah, but how your refrigerator's there, your sink is over here, I don't understand it. I don't understand that design because I was trained differently. So yeah, you're right. So I don't know. I don't mean to be rambling, but so I only got to read really the first part of it, but it hit home, and it's going to, like I said, I'm going to share that with my students in terms of, a better way to practice, a better way to get better. Things like that. You don't, and just the whole thing of, yeah, it drives me crazy when people go, oh, I'm really busy. Yeah, I think in LA we like to be busy, but I don't know how much gets done. So, I can be quiet just as well as I can be busy. What am I doing? But I do make lists. I do put down ideas. I am preparing to do, but I like the action doing whatever thing. I liked all that too, because it does make you think, okay, what am I doing here? Am I just doing stuff toward and I never get there? Or am I actually preparing and getting there and doing? And I really liked, the photographer thing. Again, I only read the first one, I'm sorry, but the person who took more pictures, they had more experience. They were, you frame your picture, you get your lighting, you do things about it. And if you're doing more thinking, if you're more in your head than you are in your activity, you don't get as far. So I agreed with that as well. Yeah, thank you. I'm keeping my mic on because otherwise the sound drops out I don't know what. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Janet. Who else? I think Lindsay had her hand up.
Mhm.
Lindsay.
And what is it? We're talking about, what was the word? Automaticity.
Automaticity, yeah.
You know how you say you're driving and you don't think about it. You don't until you have a child that gets their driver's permit. And they get in the car and then you notice like, whoa. I mean, he's a good driver. Don't get me wrong, but the things that, I mean, I'm glad he asked questions, but I was thinking I haven't thought about that in 20 years. I don't know, but it's like, wow. Then I'm like really paying attention now. There's no boredom there, you know. It's gotta watch, but he does good. But I wonder, like, wow, no, he's like, how do you do this with us? Like, it's like, how do you throw a baseball at 70 miles an hour? You know, you practice, you do, I said, you know, I don't know. Same reason I flinch every time I try to play catch with you. You know, it's, you just get used to it. But no, I mean, that's what I thought of. I was like, I can just think, I don't remember driving. I just got home, but I don't even remember the way home. You know, we're on autopilot. But yeah, that just made me think, don't get bored. Pay attention to what you're doing. And, you know, but yeah, and one of my kids' kindergarten teachers said, you know, they used to say practice makes perfect, but she said, no, practice makes permanent. I was like, so be careful how you practice something, but repetition, you got to keep going, whether done and perfect or not done. Perfect and perfect and done versus not done.
Imperfect and
Yes.
done better than
I can
perfect
say
and
that
not done.
I say that all the time, and then we try to say it. There you go. Yeah. Anyway.
Beautiful. Well, thank you.
This is a great book.
Good stuff. Well, you know, Lindsay, you've been, and I know I give you a tongue bath often, but just your stats just keep going up, and you're attracting such good stuff into your life. Just for those who don't know, Lindsay and I do some business outside of this group, but we've got e-commerce business that she was the first one for the month to go ahead and put numbers on the board out of hundreds and hundreds of people. So like, there's Lindsay, there she is again. Right. So you're just doing it, girl. Yeah. And you don't have to think about it so much, right? You have to think about it less, right? Because you're developing those habits, which is exactly what we're talking
staying
about.
busy. I'm doing the work.
Right.
Big difference.
There's that. All right, good times. Anybody else? Some stuff to share on this? All right. So let's see here. So how to stop procrastinating by using the 2-minute rule. We covered that. And then the last part of this law, right? How to make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. I appreciated the what did he say here? I'm just grabbing the chapter summary. Okay, making things difficult and locking in a behavior with, is this the chapter where he talked about making a commitment, right? So yeah, one-time choices like buying a better mattress or enrolling in an automatic savings plan are single actions that automate your future habits and deliver increasing returns over time. That and the use or non-use of technology. So so all of us, as we move forward in this, and thank you again, Stuart, for the cheat sheet. You guys can download that. I put it in the chat. Anything we can do to stack the deck in our favor, because yeah, we're creatures of habit, so to speak, but also we're not going to inconvenience ourselves too much, right? If the candy bar is right there, well, it's in our environment. You know, if the celery is there, well, it's in our environment. So if we can make choices when we're conscious of it, because when we talk about habits, we're talking about not necessarily consciously thinking about these decisions. They've already been made. But when we're conscious and we're in decision-making mode, if we could just go ahead and lock that in, for me, that was sort of the grand finale for this whole, you know, so-called law. Great. Let's make commitments which are nigh irrevocable, right? So now, well, I guess we're just going to have to do it. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Thank you, my friends, for being here with us. Next week, we're going to cover the fourth law, make it satisfying. That sounds good, right? So, and look, I think that, all of this, a lot of times when people think of the deliberate creation of habits, a lot of times they think of drudgery and force and all the stuff that we don't want, right? So right here, I'm very excited. I haven't read these next few chapters yet, but I am very excited to see where he goes with this, because I'd like to have it be satisfying. So what do we got? Chapter 15, 16, and 17, 3 chapters coming up, which is only 40 pages. So let's get on it.
Are
And
those
then
the
we'll wrap
final
up.
chapters? Are those the final chapters in this book?
No, then there's advanced tactics, how to go from being merely good to being truly great. And then there's an appendix, which I don't think we'll cover, but we'll do this fourth law, and then we'll do one final week for advanced tactics, which is another 40 pages or so. Unless you guys want to just rip right through it, I suppose we could do that, but I'm kind of liking this pace that we're on right now. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
good.
like doing it this way.
Okay, good. So this way nobody gets a brain hernia, or if you need to catch up because you have not habitually been reading, you can do so without too much effort. I'll admit that that was me. That was me this week, catching up. It's like, damn, I got to go read like 50 pages, like right now. So yeah. So anyway, love you guys. Have an awesome week. We'll see you all again here next